Let's talk crochet. Hey folks, it's Mary, aka MercyTriumphs, and this is Slow Crochet. This is episode 099, and today I am talking about everything that I have been crocheting this week. So it has been a good week in the world of crochet. I have a couple of finished projects. I have some things that I finished a little while ago, but I'll go ahead and show them to you now. And then I have been starting several projects that I'm excited about. None of them are too incredibly complicated, and hopefully I'll get them done because there are some things that, of course, I want to get started on, and I'll get into that here in a minute. So let me start with some things that I made a while ago, but finally I feel like I'm able to show you them. That is some participation that I've done in the hashtag Amigurumi World Tour 2024 Crochet Along that is hosted by Cassandra over at Craftably Ever After. And so a while ago, I had that book from the library from Interlibrary Loan, which meant it wouldn't be really easy for me to recheck it multiple times. Once I had it for that time, I had to give it back. It was coming from another library somewhere else in the country. And so while I had it, I made some of these projects that I was excited about, and I was just waiting until someone chose them to send them over to Cassandra and show my Hello From projects. If you're not familiar with this crochet along, Cassandra's channel is linked in the description, as is her blog, and it has a post all about the Amigurumi World Tour. So I did make a couple of projects from there that I haven't showed yet, and these are things that, because the crochet along was happening over the summer, I wanted to celebrate some of my favorite things about summer. So one of them is peaches. I try my hardest to every season make sure that I'm eating something that just typifies the flavors and what's available in the natural world, and peaches are such a summer staple. I just love them. There are peaches that come up from Georgia, which is just a little bit south of here. In fact, Georgia is really famous for its peaches, so I'm lucky that I can get those pretty easily. So I wanted to do a peach to celebrate summer peaches, those wonderful, juicy, amazing fruits. I just love them. Sadly, now that it's getting colder, peaches are no longer eaten season, but I can think happy thoughts of those summer memories. Another summer food that I love to eat, oddly enough, this is a controversial one, is eggplant. I love a good eggplant, or aubergine for y'all in other parts of the world, but I just love eggplant. My grandmother made the most delicious ratatouille, and it featured eggplant. And then also, if you can get like Japanese eggplant that's roasted or stir-fried, there's just so many ways to do a delicious eggplant. So that is something that I also wanted to feature, wanted to make up from that Whimsical Stitches by Lauren Espy. Those were some of my contributions to the Amigurumi World Tour. So someone finally chose the eggplant, so I was able to send in my picture and participate there. Now, I am excited to be able to show you these already because Cassandra, as you know, she'll announce these crochet alongs, and they are so much fun. I've participated in several in the past, but she and my friend Lee and my friend Miss Pamela are doing another crochet along in the month of November, and that's something that I intend to participate in. I'm not sure to what degree, but it is Nautical November. So if you are interested in that, kind of doing some oceanic or sailing or piratey themed crochet makes, you'll see a few of those in this next month. I was waiting on the edge of my seat. They were teasing me saying that this crochet along was coming, but finally the information has come out, and I will link all three of those channels in the description below. Nothing to show for that quite yet because literally just found out about it yesterday at the time of filming, but I am looking forward to participating. I have some ideas of how I can kind of layer in the nautical theme into some of the little bitty Christmas things that I think I'm going to be wanting to do, and even layer in some other designers that I've been wanting to try out some of their patterns. And yeah, I think it's going to be a wonderful thing. So I'm excited to participate in that. I think any of that participation will probably just be in my typical standard bloggy once a week videos right here. So that is my crochet along ish stuff this week, at least. at least in terms of Cassandra. But if you've been around this channel, you know that I've been having a bit of a crochet along for our autumn garland. That did finish up this past Saturday. And so if you want to be a part of the little slideshow to celebrate all the beautiful different garlands that we've made, make sure that you send me a photograph of your finished garland, or even just the little elements that you've chosen. Send that to me by the end of the day, whatever your time zone is, on October 31st. And that way, for that very first Saturday in November, I'll have a minute to put together a little slideshow, put together a video, and have that up at my standard time on Saturday, November, I think it's the 2nd. So get it in by the 31st. I'd appreciate it. And then I'll get to celebrate everyone and what we made throughout the course of October. Speaking of what we have made, I have finished 2 projects this week, and I'm really excited because they are done and I'm looking forward to wearing them. The first one is the square-necked ribbed tank top. This is by Grace for the Frills, and I think it's actually called the terracotta top. It is a very, very straightforward design. The only issue that I had with it was that my gauge did not inform me correctly. So I did my proper gauge swatch. I was so good. And then when I actually started making it, I realized that I was gonna have to make things a lot bigger than I anticipated based on the gauge. So what I ended up having to do was add extra rows. You're supposed to start in the center back and then go around to the front. But my center back ended up being on the side here, which is not a problem at all. I don't think it's that noticeable. But it's because I anticipated not having to do quite as many rounds around or rows around. And then when it actually came to creating the thing, it ended up quite different than my gauge would have informed me of. So had to change some things there. Also had to redo the straps, thankfully not more than once, to make sure that they were going to be the right size for me. This is a very fitted little tank top. It is made out of a 4-weight cotton out of Hobby Lobby. I love this cotton in the colorway Warm Blush. I use a little less than 2 skeins, but I am pretty petite. So it is a great pattern. It's super soft, very beginner friendly. The only other modification that I did, other than having to play with the fit a little bit, was instead of doing slip stitches across the top, I did a row of single crochets, and then I did slip stitches on the straps. And that way I think it'll keep them from being too stretchy. So that will hopefully lock it in and be a really wonderful little piece for this summer. So yay for that one. The other thing that I finished was my sweater vest. Oh my goodness, I love this thing. Actually, give me a minute. I'm just gonna pop this on. There it is. All right, I love it. I love it. Again, no pattern on this. I've been working on it the last couple of weeks, quite cropped, but it comes in right to my natural waist. And yeah, so last week I had issues with this ribbing at the neckline here. And I realized that I was trying to mimic the ribbing that I did at the bottom. This is single crochet and slip stitch back loops only ribbing back and forth. I decided here at the top to do a ribbing of alternating double crochet and single crochet, and that meant it stretched out a little bit more. And because it was stretching out, it kind of made me pull in a little bit, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense, but it made everything lay a little bit flatter, which is what I was going for. I wanted to kind of have a nice line there and not be like ruffly, which is what it was doing before. After that, I did go back with a long length and I just whip stitched around to make sure that my seams were nice and tight there. I did, I think, 6 stitches across here, but then on the armbands, I did the same pattern, but I did 4 across, so it's a little bit smaller. So really, every little bit of ribbing throughout this thing is slightly different. And you can see too that I use different colors in the 3 different places, but I really do love how it turned out. I love that lark's foot stitch, and it is really sweet. I think it's going to go great over some little dresses or be paired with some high-waisted jeans, things like that. I love this top. I love how it turned out. It'll be great over some collared shirts, and it is quite cozy. And yeah, it just makes me glad. I love the fit on it. I love how it turned out. So for something that I did without a pattern and without really knowing how my yarn was going to play out, I really do like how it turned out. So those were my finishes from this week. And I have 4 new beginnings. Let me start with this one. This is my fingering weight yarn that I got from Joann's recently. Their Superwash Merino blend. Beautiful, beautiful yarn. And last week I had it in like a planned pooling, well, not a planned pooling. It was just wherever I would come to the bold color, I would do a bobble stitch with a completely different pattern. And that was not working. You can see how frequently that color change comes in. So then I tried just doing my own thing, kind of coming up with my own pattern. That wasn't working out, but then thankfully Crystal over at Bag O' Day Crochet to the rescue. I saw she came out with a new shawl pattern called Hyper Fixated. It is a half circle wrap, and she used a much larger yarn there than I am, but I figure I'm going to keep going with this whole cake of yarn. It is super, super simple, which is wonderful. I love that kind of having something that's a little bit mindless to work on, and it will come together really quickly. Basically, you are doing double crochets and chain stitches, and you're just going into those chain spaces every time. You're doing increases at several different points along the way. Beautiful design, very straightforward, very simple. And then eventually it will go into some shell stitches. Since I have 2 hanks of this, I'm going to work as much as I can with the first hank, and then I'll get into the second when I do the shell border. I think there's a row across the top to kind of pull it in, make this a little bit neater. Although it is okay being a little ruffly, but I think it'll be nice having just a straight top to that shawl. This is one that I can pull and just work on it a little bit at a time. Right now it's very portable, it's pretty mindless, and I love having at least one of those in process at a time. Something that is not very mindless, but semi-mindless, I guess, sorry for the little clacking of the hook, is the Common People hat by Martin Up North. Now, this is a hat that it looks pretty big as such, right? This is my first time working up this pattern, so we'll see how it goes. Martin Up North is known for a lot of his beautiful colorwork blankets, but this is a hat that was worked in a DK weight yarn. But it's one of those ones that I've wanted to try for a very long time, and now that I'm doing it, I see why I haven't done it. It is so many single crochets in the back loop only. It's about 70 some, between 70 and 80 depending on how you're going here. And in terms of rows across, it's about 100 rows. So I'm only on 24. So what I need to do, I need to just go to his pattern website, to go to the blog, and then just note when I need to decrease and increase. And then again, a kind of mindless one, but I do have to keep track of the row that I'm on. Otherwise, it will get pretty messy pretty quickly. But I do think it'll be interesting. I think it'll turn out to be a pretty sizable hat, probably headed for donation. I am using Feels Like Cashmere Kismet yarn. This one is from my friend Miss Jana Kay. She brought it to me from her time in South Africa. It is 100% acrylic. It's 250 meters, so a little bit more than that in terms of yards. I ought to have plenty to get through, but I will know when I get to about row 50, 55 or so, if I have enough for the entire thing. As you finish it, I think it's these 4 panels and then you seam them up. I have done several hats of this style before. In fact, the one that I'm wearing now is worked side to side. This is one, again, I wanted to try for a while, and I thought, you know what, I in the moment, I was kind of in a funk. I was like, let me just pull this. I know that this is destined for that at some point. Let me just get it started. I have no idea how long it's going to take me because there are other things on the hook, other things I'm excited for. But again, another semi-mindless project to work on. And I think when it's done, I will have a full opinion on that hat style, on that design. Speaking of hats, I have a different one that I'm working on. I've made this several times before. It is the Break Free hat by Crystal over at Bag O' Day, and I have done this in the past. This is a very dark chocolate brown. I hope you can see the texture there. In her original design, she doesn't have the textured stitches at the crown of it, but she starts it after you've formed the full crown. I've done some modifications in the past, and I've kept notes of those modifications because I love that texture so much. And I wanted to make sure that it starts in the top too. It just seems to be a bit more unified. And thanks to her beautiful tutorial, it was easy to do those few modifications there. So Break Free beanie. I do need to go back and watch the rest of her video and pick up kind of about where I left off there. But this will be the 3rd or 4th time that I've made this hat before. I really do like it. And this was just a yarn that I pulled from my stash. I'm using a 5.5 millimeter hook on it. But this is Barocco Ultra Alpaca. in the colorway Duncan. It's a 4-weight, but whoever had it before me caked it up pretty tight. So it's behaving kind of like a 3. Maybe it'll fluff up a little bit if I maybe throw it in the dryer on low. We'll see. But it is 50% superfine alpaca, 50% Peruvian wool, and it's about 219 yards or 200 meters, 100 grams, 3.5 ounces. It does recommend a 5mm hook, so I am going up a little bit, but I do tend to have tight gauge. So work in progress. Number 4, I anticipate this being done hopefully in the near future. This might be a finish for next week. Something that probably won't be a finish for next week is a scarf that I started because I joined up with Love Life Yarn, Amanda Saladin. I joined her mailing list. I'm looking at her Holiday Makers Challenge, and she had a beautiful scarf there that she used Scarfy yarn for. For this one, I am using Yarn Bee Soft Stitch from the clearance. So this is another 4-weight yarn. It's another acrylic, an anti-pilling acrylic, and I had 2 of these in the colorway Oatmeal. So I thought between the 2 of them, I ought to be able to get a beautiful scarf out. Now, this is a pattern I've done before. It's not that hard to memorize, but it is one that takes a little bit of concentration. So this will be a scarf that I make up. I think it'll be lovely just as is. It'll probably be in the donation pile just because it's acrylic and because I really want to up my game in donations this year. There are several places that I tend to donate to, and I think with places in East Tennessee and Western North Carolina really being in need, I'm hoping that people will donate there, but then that might not leave them as much availability for locally. All that to say, beautiful scarf in the process. The name of this scarf is the Diamond Stitch Scarf, which I think is a very appropriate name. Again, she did it in Lion Brand Scarfy, but I think it's going to be really beautiful in this yarn. I'm using a 6.0mm hook on this, even though the yarn recommends a 5.5mm, so I just went up a little bit, but I think it's going to be really classic and it'll keep someone toasty and warm, and I'll just go until I can't go anymore, and if I need to add a second ball of yarn, I certainly will. Scarfy does come in a larger ball, so 1 ball of Scarfy would do a larger scarf. 2 balls of this ought to get me there. So that is what I have been crocheting this week. I do have a couple of projects other than participation in a crochet along, but I have other projects that I want to start. I have some beautiful yarn that I pulled out that's just staring at me and saying, you want to use me, you want to work with me. Yes, I do, but I also have these other things on the hook right now. But hopefully, I always say this, hopefully I'll get a lot of progress done on those. And, you know, I do, as slow as I go, I do make progress every week. It is fun to keep at this craft. And it is such a beautiful thing. I love how much versatility there is in crochet. So many different things that you can do, so many wonderful ideas, so many manifestations of the same little stitches. They can do such amazing things. It's a craft where you can learn and learn and learn. And I just love it. And here I am waxing poetic once again about why I love crochet. Y'all, thank you. I'm so glad y'all are here with me. Thank you to all of my subscribers. Thank you to everyone who's come along in the last week or so. I really do appreciate you. Thank you to those of you who watch and like and comment. Thank you to those of you that check in with me and let me know how you're doing and what life is like for you. And for whatever reason, if I'm not your cup of tea, thank you so much for listening this long. I do appreciate you, and I do hope I'll see you again soon. Oh, and get in your photos of your autumn garlands. My email address is in the description. Bye.